When I was a kid, there were three food ingredients that I hated eating: tomatoes, onions, and mushrooms. My parents would tell me, "You're just being picky, you'll like them when you're older." Well, ha 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 ha. I'm older now, and I still don't like mushrooms. Who got the last laugh on that one? Kinda sounds like it was me. Although, I do like tomatoes and onions, so darn, 2 out of 3, parents win again. But still, they had a heck of a time trying to get me to eat those mushrooms. You know, they might have had better luck force-feeding me PlayStation 1 back in the day. Something I hated, but now I absolutely love. What you have to understand is that when I was a kid, something I really liked to do a lot was be stupid. Something a lot of kids and adults can probably relate to. At the time, I had Nintendo 64, and all my friends had Nintendo 64, and we loved playing the multiplayer games together. We loved talking about our experiences playing the single player games together. It was just great for all of us. And so by default, anything that wasn't the Nintendo 64, I hated, and unfortunately that was the PlayStation 1 at the time. But lucky for me, and lucky for anybody I suppose, the fortunate thing about being stupid is that you always have the opportunity to go back and try to unstupid some of the stupid that you did. And so, when it comes to the PlayStation 1, I gave it a second chance, and you better believe it. Now, I like it even more than the Nintendo 64, so just goes to show what having the right attitude can do for you. Speaking of which, the next console on my list is the PlayStation 2. What is this guy, just some sort of weird PlayStation hating dude? Well, I kind of was. What you have to remember is that back then the PlayStation and Sony were really kicking some serious butt. So if you played anything that was not a PlayStation console, it kind of just naturally gave you sort of a "what about me" mentality. I mean, I still am a little bit it bugs me that people didn't pay as much attention to the GameCube back then as I think they should have. But yeah, I took out some of my frustration on the PlayStation 2, unfortunately. But then one day, it just hit me. One Saturday afternoon, I was cozied up with my PlayStation 2, doing what people in PlayStation 2s do, playing it. And the moment was just right. It was that time of day where the sun is just starting to set. We had some candles lit in our home, not necessarily because I was playing PlayStation 2. I think there was like something stinky in the house we found, and it kind of smelled nasty, so we had some candles going. But anyways, the candles are there while I'm playing the PlayStation 2, and I'm playing Sly Cooper. And I thought to myself, you know, not only is this a lot of fun, but this probably wouldn't even be in a lot of people's top 10, top 20, top 50 even. It just goes to show the sheer variety and amount of games there are for PlayStation 2, and I thought, I just gotta keep digging through the library because there's gonna be more games I find that I enjoy. There ended up just being so many really cool games that I enjoyed owning for the PlayStation 2. Like the Time Crisis games. When I decided to get these and go through the hassle of getting the light gun and this weird cable you need to get it all working, that was really satisfying because if you know me, you know I love my arcade games, so that was awesome to be able to have something like this. And here's a question for you. Did your mommy buy you Okami back in the day? Well, I would have loved that, but I didn't have a PlayStation 2, and so I missed out. Well, instead I just hated the console because I didn't have it, and it wasn't the console I owned. Now, with time, have I grown to love the PlayStation 2 even more than the GameCube? Not really, but it's not really so much the PlayStation 2's fault so much as I just really love the GameCube. I mean, the PlayStation 2 is still right up there with it. It's pretty solid for me. Okay, the next system on my list is kind of a weird one because I went from loving it back in the day to then hating it for a while and then back to loving it with a vengeance, and that would be the original Game Boy, the DMG. Now, with the Game Boy, it was a different kind of hate, more along the lines of, I just didn't think it was very good, something that a lot of people to this day still think, and I can sort of see where they're coming from. The games visually might seem kind of simple, the way they look, especially on this green screen, doesn't necessarily look the greatest. A lot of the games could be viewed as just inferior versions of home console games, and yeah, it's got some things going against it. But you know what they always say, never doubt the heart of a champion. And as soon as I started believing in the heart of the Game Boy, boom, it got me again. And now I love it probably even more than I did as a kid, and that's saying something because as a kid, this was almost like my life for a while. In a way, it's kind of similar to my experience with the PlayStation 2, where, yeah, there's a lot of games on the console that I don't think are that great and just don't do it for me, but because the library is so expansive, if you just dig around hard enough, you will find some stuff. And with the Game Boy, oh yeah, I found some good stuff. Mole Mania, didn't really have to look very hard for that one, but that was amazing. And then I found games like Cat Trap, which certainly nobody talked about back in the day, and I don't even really see anybody talk about it nowadays, but it ended up being a video game I just really enjoy. And so I found with the Game Boy, you can find stuff like this that's super cool. I gotta tell you though, of all the consoles I ever doubted, the Game Boy is, PDA is kind of one of our things now, but of all the consoles I ever doubted, the Game Boy has got to be the one I feel the worst about because I loved it at one point. Why would I have ever doubted it? Alright, but before I stop talking about the Game Boy, I got one last quick little story for you. So, I'm going to the airport to get on an airplane to fly somewhere, as people do, and I need some entertainment, so I bring my green Game Boy, and at security, they stopped me. Not only because this thing is a weapon you could really whack somebody with, but because they were fascinated by it. They thought it was cool. They were like, oh yeah, I remember this thing, and they thought it was awesome that I had it. So, if you've ever been hesitant to bring your Game Boy on a plane flight, don't be. But with all that said, those are 3 consoles I used to hate that I now love. Naturally, I would love to hear what some of the consoles are for you that you used to hate but now love. And of course, be sure to include all the juicy details. So with that, leave those comments down below and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the red